It's a Tuesday, and Alex is sitting at a red light, feeling pretty good about himself. He just opened his brokerage app, thumbed his spare cash into 3 stocks trending that morning, and for the first time he feels like an adult who has his money figured out. He does not have his money figured out. Across town, that same Tuesday, his coworker Grace, same job, same paycheck, does something far less exciting. She sets up a single automatic transfer, routes her money through a specific order of accounts, and goes back to her life. She won't think about it again for years. 5 years later, Grace is sitting roughly $40,000 ahead of Alex. Same income, same savings, same boring index funds, and she never once picked a better investment than he did. She just put her dollars in the right order. That order, not the picks, not the timing, not the paycheck, is the whole difference. Here's the exact sequence step by step. By the end, you'll know precisely where Grace's 40 grand came from. My name's Nick, and I have spent a genuinely unreasonable amount of time obsessing over a question most people never even ask. Not what to invest in. Everybody argues about that. The question almost nobody asks is what order to do things in. Match or debt, Roth or 401k, emergency fund, or just send it. And it turns out that order is worth more than your stock picks, your fund fees, and your timing combined. So if you've ever stared at a little bit of extra money and felt that low hum of paralysis that I should probably be doing something smarter with this feeling, this is the video that kills that feeling for good. Make sure you're subscribed because we're about to build the whole map. Quick, honest disclaimer, I'm not your financial advisor, and this isn't personalized financial advice. These are the principles with the actual 2026 numbers attached and the math underneath them so you can see why each step sits where it sits. Your situation has its own wrinkles. We'll get to the wrinkles. Here's the one idea everything hangs on. Think of your money like water falling down a series of buckets. Each bucket is a place your dollars can go. And the rule of the waterfall is simple. You fill the bucket with the highest guaranteed return first. Only when it overflows does the water spill into the next one down. Guaranteed beats, maybe. Tax-free beats taxed. Money you can reach beats money that's locked away. Burn those 3 lines into your head because they decide everything that follows, and I'm not going to keep repeating them. We're going to spend the rest of this video pouring water down the exact buckets in order with 2026's real limits and real rates. The order is the edge, not the picks, the order. Before we touch a single step, I need you to feel why this isn't just tidy-minded nonsense, why the order is the whole game. Picture Alex again. He's got $10,000 sitting on a credit card. Average rate on that card in 2026 is somewhere around 21-22%. And he's also got $10,000 he's proudly invested in the market, expecting, let's be generous, 7% a year. Run that. He's earning 7 on one pile and losing 21 on the other. Net, he is going backwards by roughly 14% a year. On 10 grand, that's about $1,400 a year he is setting on fire while feeling like a responsible investor the entire time. He's not dumb. He's just pouring water into the wrong bucket while a higher priority bucket sits there bleeding. That's the cost of bad order, not a rounding error. Real money every single year quietly. And here's where it gets interesting because the flip side is just as dramatic in the other direction. The match, the debt payoff, the tax-advantaged accounts, each of these done in the right slot hands you a return that the stock market can only dream about delivering reliably. So when I say order matters more than picks, I'm not being cute. I'm telling you the buckets at the top of this waterfall pay better than anything you could buy at the bottom. So let's start pouring. From the very top, step 0, and I call it 0 because it's not really investing, it's the thing that protects all your investing. A small cash buffer, $1,000 to $2,000, that's it. Here's why it comes first, before the sexy stuff. Life is going to throw a bill at you, the car makes a noise, the tooth cracks, the water heater picks the worst possible week to die. And if you have nothing between you and that bill, you reach for a credit card and you've just walked yourself into the 21% bucket we literally just watched destroy Alex. That $2,000 isn't an investment, it's a wall. It stands between one bad Tuesday and a debt spiral that undoes months of progress. Grace in our story had hers parked and ready before she did anything else. Alex didn't bother. Guess who funded a transmission repair with plastic? Put it in a high yield savings account, which in 2026 actually pays you something, and forget about it. It's not there to grow. It's there to keep you in the game. That's the entire job. Onward. Step 1 is, without exaggeration, the best deal you will ever be offered in your financial life, and a shocking number of people walk right past it. The employer 401k match. If your job offers one, this is the bucket you fill before almost anything else. And I'll defend that even if you're carrying some debt, which is a big statement, so let me back it up. A typical match is something like, we'll put in 100% of the first 5% you contribute. Translate that. You put in $1, your employer drops in $1 instantly. That is a 100% return. Not 7%, not 10, 100. The moment the money lands, before the market does anything at all, there is no investment on earth that reliably doubles your money the instant you make it. This is the closest thing to free money that exists inside the law. Let me dramatize it, because percentages go in one ear and out the other. Say you make $80,000 and you contribute that 5%. That's $4,000 of yours and $4,000 from your employer. Now let that employer match, just the free $4,000 a year, ride in the market at 7% for 30 years. You end up with roughly $377,000 from the part you didn't pay for. That's $250,000 in free money, and the only thing you had to do to claim it was fill out a form and not skip the bucket. Tattoo this one somewhere. Walking past your full employer match is the only place in personal finance where you turn down a guaranteed 100% return out of pure inattention. And that, by the way, is exactly where Alex lost his first chunk of that 40 grand. His job offered the same match Grace's did. He just never dragged the contribution slider off the factory default of 0. 2 years, 2 full years of free money gone because a number on a benefits website stayed exactly where HR set it while he was busy refreshing his stock app. Congratulations to him. He optimized the wrong screen. Now, 2 things to check on your specific match because the details bite. First, the formula. Not every match is 100% of 5%. A lot of employers do 50% of the first 6%, which is a worse deal, but still free money. On that $80,000 salary, that's $2,400 a year handed to you. And run that same 30 years at 7%, and it's still north of $226,000 you didn't earn. Worse than the full match, still life-changing, still free. Second, vesting. Some employers make you stick around a few years before the match is fully yours. It might vest gradually or all at once after a cliff. Say 3 years. This matters if you're planning to job hop because leaving before you're vested means walking away from match dollars you thought you had. It doesn't change the order. You still grab the match first, but it's worth knowing the rules of your specific plan so you're not surprised. And here's a genuinely sad statistic to sit with. Every year, American workers leave billions of dollars in unclaimed employer match on the table. Billions. Not because they made a complicated mistake, but because they contributed 0 or contributed below the match threshold and never realized they were declining a raise. Don't be a line in that statistic. Now, I can feel some of you mentally arguing with me, but Nick, I've got credit card debt. Shouldn't I attack that first? Capture the match first, then attack the debt. The reason is the math we just did. 21% is brutal, but 100% instantly beats it. You contribute exactly enough to grab every dollar of match, no more, and then the second that's locked, you turn around and go to war with the debt, which is conveniently step 2. Step 2, kill the high interest debt. And in 2026, with rates where they are, this step has teeth it didn't have a decade ago. Here's the reframe almost nobody internalizes. Paying off debt is investing. When you wipe out a balance charging you 21%, you have just earned a guaranteed, risk-free, tax-free 21% return. Guaranteed, risk-free, tax-free. Say that combination out loud because there is no legal investment that offers all 3. The market offers none of them. let me make it concrete with the tax piece, because this is the part that should change your mind. Money you save by killing a 21% card is money you never get taxed on. To match that in a normal taxable investment account, in say the 24% bracket, you'd need to earn something like 28% before tax just to break even with the card payoff. 28% reliably every year. Warren Buffett doesn't do that. So no, you are not missing out on the market by paying off your cards. You are earning a market return so good, it would get a hedge fund manager investigated. Now, what counts as high interest? This is where 2026 actually matters. Back when savings accounts paid basically nothing, the line was fuzzy. Today, cash earns you around 4% doing nothing, and the market's long-run expectation is something like 6 or 7. So anything above roughly that 7-8% range is debt that's beating what your money could reasonably earn elsewhere. Credit cards at 20 plus, not even a question. Burn them down first. A personal loan at 11%? Still yes. We'll talk about the gray zone, the 4 to 7% stuff later, because that one genuinely splits the experts. And here's where this stops being a lecture and turns into a fight. There are 2 ways to attack debt, and people get weirdly religious about which one is correct. There's the avalanche, where you throw everything at the highest interest rate first. Mathematically, that's the winner. It saves you the most money, full stop. And then there's the snowball, where you pay off the smallest balance first, regardless of rate, just to get a win on the board. On a spreadsheet, the snowball is wrong. It costs you a little more in interest, but here's the thing, the spreadsheet doesn't know. Money is not a spreadsheet problem, it's a behavior problem. The snowball exists because knocking out a whole debt, seeing the balance hit 0, gives you a hit of momentum that keeps you going. And a strategy you actually finish beats a perfect strategy you abandon in month 3. So which do you pick? If you are a cold-blooded optimizer who will stick to a plan because it's correct, avalanche, every time. If you've started and quit before, if you need the wins, snowball, and don't let anyone shame you about the few bucks of interest. The best debt strategy is the one that ends with the debt actually gone. The math tells you the cheapest path. Your psychology decides which path you'll actually walk to the end. Those are not always the same path, and pretending they are is how people stay in debt for a decade with a perfect spreadsheet. Let me put real numbers on that fork so it's not just vibes. Say you've got 3 debts, a $6,000 card at 22%, a $3,000 card at 18%, and a $1,000 store card at 26%. Avalanche says attack the 26% store card first, even though it's the smallest, then the 22, then the 18, because you're always killing the most expensive interest. Snowball says kill the $1,000 one first, then the 3,000, then the 6, smallest balance to largest for the momentum. In this particular case, they actually start the same place, the store card, by luck of the numbers. But picture it differently, a giant balance at a slightly higher rate versus a tiny balance at a slightly lower one, and the 2 methods send you in opposite directions. Avalanche saves you maybe a few $100s over the life of the payoff. Snowball gets you a zeroed out account in the first couple of months. For a lot of people, that early 0 is the thing that keeps them from quitting, and a few $100 is a cheap price for not giving up. And one category I'll never tell you to be relaxed about: payday loans and the really predatory stuff that can carry rates that annualized run into the hundreds of percent. That isn't debt, that's quicksand, and it jumps the line ahead of almost everything except your basic survival expenses. If that's you, get out of it first by whatever means, because nothing else in this video can outrun a loan compounding at 300%. Match captured, high interest debt dead, step 3. Now you build the real emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. Notice the order here. Say we did the tiny buffer at step 0, grabbed the free match, torched the worst debt, and only now do we build the big cash cushion. Why not earlier? Because parking 6 months of expenses in cash while a card charges you 21% is, again, lighting money on fire for the feeling of safety. Get the bleeding stopped first, then build the fortress. How big? 3 months if your income is stable and your job is secure. Closer to 6 or even more if your income is variable, you're self-employed, you're the only earner, or you'd struggle to find work fast in your field. There's no universal number, there's your number. Now, the good news, and this is genuinely a 2026 thing, holding cash used to feel like a punishment. You'd stuff money in a savings account paying 0.5% and watch inflation quietly eat it. Not anymore. As of 2026, after the rate cycle of the last couple of years, a good high-yield savings account is paying you in the high threes to around 4%. Money market funds, similar. Short-term treasury bills, similar. Your emergency fund can sit there, fully liquid, ready the instant you need it, and still earn a real return while it waits. Quick word on where to actually put it, because people overthink this. A high-yield savings account is the simplest, fully liquid, government-insured up to the limits. A government money market fund inside your brokerage works too, and often pays a touch more. Treasury bills are great if you want the absolute safety of government backing and don't mind a tiny bit of friction getting at the money. Any of the three is fine. What's not fine is leaving it in a big bank checking account paying you nothing while you pat yourself on the back for having savings. And let me clear up what 3 to 6 months of expenses actually means, because people calculate this wrong and scare themselves. It is not 3 to 6 months of your income. It's your expenses, the number you'd need to keep the lights on, the rent paid, the groceries bought, and the insurance current if your paycheck vanished tomorrow, not the vacations, not the eating out, not the streaming services you'd obviously cut in a crisis, your survival number. For a lot of people, that's meaningfully lower than they assume, which means the fortress is smaller and faster to build than it looks from the outside. How do you build it without it taking forever? You automate it. You set a fixed amount to move into that high yield account every single payday. The same way the match comes out before you ever see it, and you treat it as a bill you owe your future self. This, by the way, is the entire secret of Grace's boring. That one automatic transfer she set up on a Tuesday, this is part of what it was doing quietly in the background while Alex was manually deciding whether to invest each month and mostly deciding to buy something instead. Build it to 1 month first, then 3, then if your situation calls for it, 6. It doesn't arrive all at once. It accretes silently while you barely notice, which is exactly why it works. So here's where we are on the map. Buffer, match, debt, emergency fund. 4 buckets down. Everything up to now was defense. We secured the base. We stopped the bleeding. We built the wall. None of it was glamorous, and all of it was load-bearing. From here on out, it's offense. This is where the wealth-building accounts come in. And the first one is the single most underrated account in America. Most people don't even know it's an investment account at all. They think it's for Band-Aids. Step 4, and this is the one nobody expects, the HSA, the health savings account. And I need you to forget everything you think this account is for, because it is secretly the best investment account in the entire tax code, and almost nobody uses it that way. Here's why it's special. Every other account makes you pick your tax break. With a traditional 401k, you get a deduction now, but you pay tax when you pull it out. With a Roth, you pay tax now, but it comes out free later. You get one or the other. The HSA, you get both plus a third one. It's the only triple tax advantaged account in existence. Let me spell out the triple. 1, the money goes in tax deductible, so you lower your taxable income today. 2, it grows completely tax-free, no tax on the gains ever. 3, when you spend it on qualified medical expenses, it comes out like tax-free. In, growth, out. Never taxed at any stage. Nothing else in the entire system does that. To even use one, you need to be on what's called a high deductible health plan. If you are in 2026, you can put in up to $4,400 as an individual or $8,750 for a family. And if you're 55 or older, you can add another 1,000 on top. Now here's the move that separates people who know from people who don't. Most people treat the HSA like a checking account for doctor visits. Money in, money right back out at the pharmacy. That's fine. but it's leaving the magic on the table. The pros do something different. They pay their current medical bills out of pocket with normal money, and they let the HSA sit and invest untouched for decades. Watch what that does. Max the individual amount, $4,400 a year invested at 7% for 30 years. That's about $415,000. And because it's an HSA, if you spend it on medical costs, and trust me, in retirement, you will have medical costs. Every dollar of that comes out tax-free. You've built a stealth retirement account that the tax man never gets to touch. The only account where the government hands you the tax break 3 separate times. And most people use it to buy Band-Aids, and there's a genuinely sneaky move on top of that, the one the real HSA nerds love. There's no deadline to reimburse yourself for a medical expense. None. So you can pay for that root canal today out of pocket, keep the receipt, let the HSA money keep growing for 20 years, and then decades later, reimburse yourself tax-free for that old root canal, pulling the money out completely clean whenever you want it. Some people keep a folder, a literal shoebox of medical receipts going back years, sitting on a pile of tax-free withdrawals they can trigger anytime. It turns the HSA into something close to a Roth account. You can also raid penalty-free for past medical bills. It's almost unfair. One practical note so you don't trip. Many HSA providers make you keep a small minimum in cash before they let you invest the rest, so you don't always get to invest $1. Check your provider, move the investable portion into low-cost index funds, and don't let it sit there earning nothing, which is what happens to the vast majority of HSA dollars in this country, parked in cash doing the financial equivalent of napping. Now, but Nick, what if I don't have a high deductible plan? Then you skip this bucket entirely. No penalty, no drama, and your money simply isn't eligible to sit here. So it carries straight on to the next step. That's the quiet beauty of the order. A bucket that doesn't apply to you just isn't on your particular waterfall. Which brings us to the account you've definitely heard of, the one everyone tells you to open, and for once, the internet is right. Step 5. The Roth IRA, the darling of the personal finance internet, and unlike most darlings of the internet, it actually deserves the love. The deal is beautiful in its simplicity. You put in money you've already paid taxes on, it grows for decades, and when you take it out in retirement, every cent, the contributions and all those decades of growth comes out completely tax-free. You pay tax on the seed, you never pay tax on the harvest. In 2026, you can contribute up to $7,500 a year, and if you're 50 or over, an extra $1,100 on top of that. That limit jumped this year, by the way. It was $7,000 in 2025, so if you're running on old numbers, update them. There's a couple of reasons the Roth sits above your regular 401k in the order, even though the 401k often has the match. First, you usually get a far wider menu of investments in an IRA. Your 401k might give you a handful of mediocre funds with fees skimming off the top. Your IRA lets you buy basically anything, including cheap, broad index funds. Second, and this is the underrated part, your Roth contributions, the money you put in, not the growth, can be pulled back out without taxes or penalties if you ever truly need them. It's not the plan, but it's a backdoor layer of flexibility that a 401k doesn't give you. Now, there's an income catch, and this is where 2026's numbers matter. If you make too much, you get phased out of contributing directly. For a single person, that phase out runs roughly from $153,000 to $168,000 of income. For a married couple filing together, it's roughly $242,000 to $252,000. Cross the top of that range, and the front door is locked. But and this is the part that makes high earners grin. There's a side door. It's called the backdoor Roth, and it is completely legal and widely used. You put money into a regular IRA where there's no income limit to contribute, and then you convert it to a Roth. 2 steps, and you're in regardless of income. If you earn too much for the front door, you take the side door. We'll keep it that simple here. But know the door exists. Now, a fork in the road I have to address because it's the single most asked question in this whole topic. Roth versus traditional, pay tax now or pay tax later. Here's the clean rule. If your tax rate today is lower than you expect it to be in retirement, go Roth, pay the cheap tax now, lock in the low rate. If your tax rate today is higher than you expect it to be later, go traditional, take the deduction now while it's worth more, pay the cheaper tax later. A young person early in their career in a low bracket with a rising income, Roth almost always. A high earner in their peak years in the top brackets, the traditional deduction starts looking awfully attractive. There's no universal answer. There's only your bracket now versus later. The Roth versus traditional fight was never about which account is better. It's about whether you'd rather pay the tax when you're poor or when you're rich. Let me show you why people are obsessed with this account with one number. Max the Roth. $7,500 a year, every year at 7% for 30 years. That grows to something in the neighborhood of $700,000. And here's the kicker. In a normal taxable account, you'd owe tax on a big chunk of that growth when you sold. In the Roth, you owe nothing. Not on the contributions, not on the $700,000. The entire thing is yours. That's why the internet won't shut up about it. And for once, the hype is earned. One rule to know so you don't get burned. The 5-year rule. To pull out your earnings completely tax and penalty free, the account generally needs to have been open at least 5 years, and you generally need to be at least 59 and a half. Your contributions, the money you put in, you can always get back, but the growth has strings. So don't open a Roth at 58 thinking you'll raid the gains at 60 with no consequences. Open it early, even with a small amount, just to start that 5-year clock ticking. It's one of those quiet little moves your future self thanks you for. So look where you are now. You've grabbed the free match, you've killed the bad debt, you've got your cash fortress, you've maxed the magical health account, and the beloved Roth. You'd think you're done, yet you're not. Because there's still room in a bucket we deliberately only half filled way back at the start. And now we march back up the hill and top it off. Step 6, we return to the 401k and fill it the rest of the way up. Remember, back at step 1, we only contributed enough to grab the full match. We deliberately stopped there and went off to do other things, the debt, the cash, the HSA, the Roth. Now that those are handled, we come back and pour more into the 401k all the way up to the annual limit. In 2026, that limit, the part you contribute as an employee, is $24,500. That's up from $23,500 last year. And that number does not include the match. Your employer's contribution sits on top of it. There are some genuinely big catch-up perks if you're older, and these are new and worth knowing. If you're 50 or over, you can add an extra $8,000. But here's the one that surprises people, courtesy of the Secure 2.0 law. If you're between 60 and 63 specifically, you get a super catch-up of $11,250 instead. Stack that on the base limit, and someone in that narrow age window can shovel in close to $36,000 in a single year. If you're approaching 60 and behind on retirement, that window is a gift and most people don't even know it exists. One more 2026 wrinkle, and this one trips up high earners, so listen up if that's you. Under the Secure 2.0 rules now phasing in, if you earned more than $145,000 last year, your catch-up contributions have to go in as Roth, meaning after tax rather than pre-tax. It's a real change. It's rolling out across plans around now, and the exact timing depends on your specific employer's plan. So if you're a high earner over 50, check whether your plan has switched your catch-up to Roth this year because it changes your take-home math. While we're in here, 2 things to check inside your own 401k that quietly make a huge difference. First, a lot of plans now offer a Roth 401k option, not just the traditional pre-tax version. Same contribution limit, but you choose whether the money goes in pre-tax or after tax, the exact same now versus later tax decision we made for the IRA. If you're young and in a low bracket, the Roth 401k is often the move. Second, and please actually do this, look at the fees on your 401k funds. Some plans bury you in funds charging 1% a year or more, which over a career can quietly eat a six-figure chunk of your returns. If your plan has a low-cost index fund option, and most decent ones do, use it. A 1% fee doesn't sound like much until you realize it's compounding against you for 40 years. And at this point, a very fair question is forming in your head. Nick, who on earth is actually maxing out a $24,000 401k and a Roth and an HSA? And you're right. Most people never get this far down the waterfall, and that's completely fine. We'll deal with that in a minute. But for the people who do have more to invest, there's a bucket below this one with a name so ridiculous it sounds invented. It isn't. And it's the closest thing the tax code has to a cheat code. Step 7, the mega backdoor Roth. Yes, that is the real legal name. No, I didn't invent it to sound exciting, although it does sound like a wrestling move. Here's the cheat code in one breath. Remember that $24,500 limit on what you can put in? That's only the cap on your slice. The total that can land in a 401k from everyone combined, you, your employer, and a special third category called after-tax contributions is $72,000 in 2026. That's a massive gap between your 24.5 and the full 72. The mega backdoor is the move that lets high earners pour after-tax money into that gap and then immediately convert it into Roth space, where it grows and comes out tax-free forever. Think about what that means. Someone who's already maxed everything above can shovel tens of thousands of additional dollars a year into a tax-free account they were never supposed to have room for. It sounds like an exploit. It's just a feature sitting in plain sight that the people who know about it use without mercy. The catch is that your specific 401k plan has to allow two things: after-tax contributions and in-plan conversions, and plenty of plans don't. So this one's genuinely not for everyone. If your plan has it and your income can feed it, learn its silly name and use it. If it doesn't, no loss. You are already doing better than almost everyone by getting this far. Either way, the water now arrives at the final bucket, and the final bucket is the one that's secretly about your freedom. And here we are. Step 8, the taxable brokerage account, the plain old regular investment account. The one Alex opened first, before any of the good stuff, which was the whole root of his problem. Here's the thing about this account. It's last in the order, but it is not bad. And in fact, for a lot of people, this is where the real wealth eventually piles up, because it's the one bucket with no ceiling. The 401k has a limit. The Roth has a limit. The HSA has a limit. The taxable account, pour in as much as you want forever. Why is it last? Because it's the least tax efficient. You get taxed on your dividends along the way, and you get taxed on your gains when you sell. No deduction going in, no tax-free exit. It's the bucket with the fewest perks, so it gets filled only after every advantage bucket above it is full. But it has one quiet superpower the retirement accounts don't, and this is the part I actually want you to feel. Liquidity with no strings. Your 401k and your IRA generally want you to wait until your late 50s or 60s before you can touch them without a penalty. The taxable account doesn't care how old you are. It's yours today at any age for any reason. Want to retire at 45? Want to take a year off and not check your email? Want to walk into your boss's office and quit a job that's quietly grinding you into dust? That doesn't get funded by the account you can't touch until 60. It gets funded by this one. So here's the truth that reframes the whole list. The retirement accounts buy your old age, the taxable account buys your freedom. That's why it's last, and also why, for a lot of people chasing an early exit, it ends up being the most important bucket of all. And the tax treatment, while it's the worst of the bunch, is honestly not that bad once you understand it. If you hold an investment longer than a year, your gains get taxed at long-term capital gains rates, which are lower than the rates on your regular paycheck, and for some lower income folks can even be zero. So the least efficient bucket is still gentler than the tax on your wages. The trick is just to be a long-term holder, buy broad, cheap funds, and not churn in and out, triggering taxable events for no reason. Do that, and the taxable account becomes a remarkably flexible, surprisingly tax-friendly engine for the parts of your life that won't wait until 60. This is the bucket Grace in our story finally reached after years of doing everything in order. And it's the bucket Alex started with and never properly fed because all his money was still tangled up, paying off the debt he never prioritized. Same income, same 5 years, completely different bottom of the waterfall. Let me make this real because I've thrown a lot of buckets at you and I want you to see the water actually flowing. Let's take Grace's $1,200 a month actually. Let's give her a raise to $1,500 a month to invest and pour it down the waterfall exactly the way we just built it. Watch where each dollar goes. First, her employer matches 100% of the first 5% of a $75,000 salary, so she sets her 401k to 5%, about $312 a month coming out of her pay, and her employer drops in the same $312. She spent $312 of her $1,500 and she's already turned it into $624. She's up 100% before the market opens. That's the match bucket, full. She's got no credit card debt left. She killed that before she started investing in earnest, and her emergency fund is already sitting in a high yield account earning its 4%. So the water keeps flowing down. Next bucket, the HSA. She's on a high deductible plan, so she sends the next chunk there, paying her small current medical bills out of pocket and letting the HSA invest and grow. Say she puts $300 a month in, we're now at $612 of her $1,500 spent. Next, the Roth IRA. She points the next $625 a month there, which over a year fills it right up to that $7,500 limit. Now she's at roughly $1,237 of her $1,500 deployed. She's got about $260 a month left. Does it go to a taxable account? Not yet. Remember, she only contributed enough to her 401k to grab the match. There's a ton of unused room in that bucket, up to $24,500. So the leftover flows back uphill into the 401k to keep filling it. Every dollar still landing in a tax-advantaged bucket before a single dollar touches the taxable account. Now step back and look at what just happened. Her $1,500 didn't go into investments. It went into a sequence: match first, free money, then the triple tax advantage bucket, then the tax-free bucket, then back up to top off the tax-deferred one. And every single one of those landed somewhere the government either matches it, never taxes it, or at least taxes it later on far better terms. Alex took his $1,500 and dumped the whole thing straight into a taxable brokerage account, skipped the free match, and paid tax on every gain, all while still carrying the card. Same $1,500. One of them is getting a 100% head start and a lifetime of tax breaks. The other is getting a 1099 and a slow bleed. That right there is the entire $40,000 gap drawn in slow motion. Not a stock pick, a sequence. And look, if you've made it this far, if the whole map of this thing just clicked into place, here's the question I get asked more than any other. It's not, which fund should I buy? It's, Nick, how do you actually do this? The channel, the breakdowns, the faceless finance thing as a real income. That's the exact thing we built our community for. Inside, we walk you through the whole machine end to end, how to pick a profitable money niche that isn't already saturated. The script structure these videos actually use, the one you've been watching work on you for the last 40 minutes. How to produce a faceless video without ever showing your face or owning fancy gear. And then real feedback on your work from people doing the same thing so you're not guessing alone in the dark. If watching me pour money down a waterfall lit something up in you, the link's in the description. Come build with us. That's the whole pitch. And now back to your money. Step 9, and then the part where I tell you when to ignore me, because a map you follow off a cliff is a bad map. Step 9 is everything else. Your other goals. A 529 for a kid's college, saving for a house down payment. And the big one, paying down low interest debt, which lives way down here at the bottom on purpose. Your mortgage, your low rate student loans, the stuff under that 7 or 8% line, it comes last because mathematically your money earns more in the buckets above it than it saves by paying these off early. There's no fire here. Just slow, optional cleanup once everything important is handled. Now, the deviations. Because this order is a default, not a law, and anyone who treats it like scripture is going to give bad advice eventually. Deviation 1. The mortgage question, because this is where 2026 genuinely changes the answer. If you locked in a mortgage at 2.75% during the pandemic, you should almost never pay it off early ahead of investing. Your money earns way more in the market than that loan costs you, but a lot of people are sitting on mortgages from the last couple of years at 6.5% or higher. That is a completely different conversation. 6.5% guaranteed, tax considerations aside, starts to genuinely compete with what you'd expect from the market. So whether you prepay your mortgage depends entirely on which mortgage you have. The 2.75 crowd and the 6.5 crowd should not be following the same advice, and most generic videos pretend they're the same person. Deviation 2, the self-employed. If you work for yourself, you don't have a standard 401k match, but you get access to accounts like a solo 401k or a SEP IRA that let you shovel in dramatically more than an employee can, up to that $72,000 total. Your version of the order leans hard into those because your tax advantaged space is enormous and you should use it. Deviation 3, lower income. If you're earning less, there's a thing called the saver's credit, where the government effectively kicks in extra for your retirement contributions, almost like a second secret match. Near those income thresholds, it can be worth tuning exactly how much you contribute to grab it. It's a quiet little bonus that rewards exactly the people who need it most, and almost nobody talks about it. Deviation 4, close to retirement. The closer you are, the more the order bends toward liquidity and protecting against bad timing in your final working years, and the more those super catch-up contributions we mentioned become the star of the show. The point of all four is the same. The waterfall is the default for a reason. It's right for most people most of the time. But your life has specifics, and the specifics get a vote. Before we land this thing, let me show you the 4 most common ways people get the order wrong. Because spotting yourself in one of these is worth more than any single step we covered. These are the leaks. These are how the water ends up on the floor instead of in the buckets. Leak number 1, investing while you're still carrying high interest debt. People do this because investing feels productive and paying off debt feels like running in place. But feeling productive and being productive are not the same thing, and a credit card does not care how productive you feel. You already saw the math at the top of this video. You're going backwards fast the whole time. The fix is unglamorous and total. Pause the brokerage, kill the card, then and only then come back. This was Alex, by the way, thumb on the app, buying the dip on a phone he was technically financing at 22%, leak number 2, leaving the match on the table to play it safe. Some people, especially people burned by the market once, contribute nothing to their 401k because they're scared of losing money. But the match isn't market risk. The match is a raise. Declining it to avoid risk is like refusing a pay increase because you're worried about the stock market. The two things aren't even connected. Grab the free money. You can invest it conservatively inside the account if volatility scares you. Just don't decline the raise. Leak number 3, the cash hoarder. The opposite problem. Some people get so attached to the safety of the emergency fund that they just keep adding to it year after year until they've got 2 years of expenses sitting in savings earning 4% while inflation nibbles and the market runs without them. A fortress is protection. A fortress the size of a small country is just money you're scared to deploy. Once your 3 to 6 months is set, the water is supposed to flow past it, not pool there forever. Leak number 4, and this one's subtle, skipping the boring buckets to chase the exciting one. This was Alex's whole personality. The taxable brokerage, the individual stocks, the stuff you can post about, that's exciting. The HSA, the methodical 401k topping up, the backdoor Roth paperwork, that's boring. And so people pour into the exciting bucket at the bottom while the boring higher value buckets sit half empty above it. The entire lesson of this video is that the boring buckets pay better. The excitement is inversely correlated with the return. Make peace with boring. Boring is where the money is. If you saw yourself in even one of those, good. That's the most useful thing this video can do for you. Not teach you a new step, but show you the leak you didn't know you had. Now let me say the thing. The comments are already typing. That's like, this is overwhelming, Nick. 9 steps, a dozen account types, limits I'll never remember. And I hear you. So let me give you permission to relax about it. You do not need to do all 9. Almost nobody does. If all you ever do is grab your full employer match and kill your credit card debt, you will be ahead of a huge chunk of this country because you filled the 2 highest return buckets that exist. Everything below that is just how far down the waterfall your particular income lets the water reach. There's no failure in stopping at step 3. There's only failure in pouring into step 8, while step 2 sits there bleeding. And if you're sitting there right now doing the quiet math, the kind where you check your bank balance before you let yourself add the chicken to the cart, the kind that keeps you doing tire calculations at 2 in the morning, and you're realizing you've been doing this out of order, investing while a card collects interest, leaving a match you didn't even know was a raise. Here's the thing I need you to actually hear. You were not being stupid. Nobody handed you this map. They make you memorize that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and then release you into a world of 401ks and Roth phase-outs with precisely 0 instructions. The fact that you're here learning the order today means the next dollar lands in the right bucket, and the next dollar was the only one that was ever in your control anyway. So let's go back to where we started. Alex and Grace, same job, same paycheck, same $1,200 a month, and that $40,000 gap after 5 years. Now you know exactly where it came from. Grace captured her match from $1, that instant 100%, while Alex left his slider on 0 for 2 years. Grace killed her high-interest debt and stopped the bleeding while Alex bought the dip on a financed phone. Grace automated her cash fortress and never once reached for a card in a crisis, while Alex funded every emergency on plastic and quietly reset his own progress each time. By the time Alex was finally untangling the mess, Grace was already pouring water into the freedom bucket at the very bottom. Neither of them was smarter, neither got luckier, neither, and this is the whole point, ever picked a better stock. One of them just put the same dollars in the right order, and the other spent 5 years optimizing the wrong screen. That's the entire 40,000, sequencing, nothing else. Here's the last thing, and it's the part I actually want you to keep. You will spend years of your life arguing with yourself about what to invest in, which fund, which stock, whether now is a good time, and almost none of it will move the needle the way this boring, unglamorous order just did. The order is the edge, like it's the part you fully control. It's also, not coincidentally, the exact thing we teach people to build entire channels around. Links in the description if that's you. But forget the channel for a second. Here's your move today, not someday. Find out your employer match and grab every single dollar of it. Then look at your highest interest debt and pick a fight with it. That's steps 1 and 2, the 2 buckets that pay more than anything else you will ever do with money. Fill those and let the water find its own way down from there. Because 10 years from now, you are going to be either Grace or Alex. And the difference between them was never the money, the income, or the market. It was the order. Put your dollars in it.